The Talksport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the Talksport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search Talksport Fan Network.
Hello Cherries fans, and welcome back to Up the Cherries in all departments, and this is part 2 of the David Stock Select 11. So let's get straight on with it. Let's welcome in David and let's talk about some real megastars of 60s and 70s football. Hello, David. Welcome back to Up the Cherries in all department yet again. It's a pleasure to have you on, and this time to discuss your opposition, Select 11. So if we could get started, we'll have a look at your goalkeeping choice, which is, for me, I think is a player that probably could have played for England a lot more if there wasn't a certain goalkeeper ahead of him. Peter Bonetti.
Yes, Chelsea.
Big Chelsea legend. What made you pick him over the likes of someone like Gordon Banks, for example?
Well, when I was a youngster in London, obviously you have a lot of football clubs you can watch, and quite often at school we would play our school matches on a Saturday morning, as I think lots of kids did. And on Saturday afternoons in London, we had quite a lot of choice of matches to go and watch, or teams to watch. And in particular, the transport system in London at that time was brilliant. You know, cars were about, but not as many as they are today. So to be able to get basically a coach or a bus to a football ground and watch what was then the old First Division was pretty straightforward, really, because you just had to walk to the bus station, jump on the bus, and away you go. So that part of that was that I used to go to watch in London, mainly sort of Arsenal, Chelsea, teams like that, tried to go to the top class. And at Chelsea, there was a number of players there that I saw on a fairly regular basis. And I have to say, Peter Bonetti is the best goalkeeper, apart from perhaps Roger Jones, who I played with, who I would put in a similar category. But Bonetti was just incredible. You know, you could almost see teams running out of ideas and ways of beating him. Incredible goalkeeper, very calm, straightforward. I guess there was a hint of perhaps Italian in there somewhere with the name.
Yes, yeah,
which I think made him at times a little theatrical, but fantastic goalkeeper. You know, he just stopped the ball going into the back of the net. Simple, but just incredible.
Yes, I've seen some footage on like some, like old match of the day clips and stuff like that, and yeah, he looks like somebody that, like you say, as you've described, a fantastic player. Your first defender. Well, where else can you start, really, than probably one of the greatest defenders of all time, with Bobby
Yeah,
Moore.
yeah, amazing. I watched him play a few times. Had the privilege of playing against him for Charlton, against West Ham. I still can't work out, even today, how he had so much time on the ball. I mean, that what he did was impossible. You know, how in the, you know, the pace of the game and everything going with it, how did he create time on the ball to enable him to look up and pass the ball? I mean, West Ham back then were the coaching pinnacle, I think, and playing against West Ham. And as a junior, I mean, when I was at Charlton, we'd play West Ham juniors, and it was just like the same. You know, they were just the same. All were, first touch was out of this world, and his first touch was just unbelievable. And reading the game, I mean, I just used to watch him. Although I was a fullback, watching him play was just a joy. I mean, he's just absolute and utter class.
Yeah. I mean, I've read books on Bobby and seen lots of documentaries, and he's always been a player that's fascinated me, and just how cultured he was at the time. Like you say, the footage of him, how much time he had on the ball, he was so far advanced of his time, wasn't he, Bobby Moore?
Yeah, he did one thing that will always stick with me, and watching him play. And when I used to go across to watch West Ham, because not too far from Charlton, and I used to watch West Ham because the way they played, and I noticed, on sort of studying him as an individual and a few of the other West Ham players, is how much, when the ball was on the way to them, a pass, they would look up and see what they were going to do with the ball before they got it. And I know nowadays that is part of, but back then, the West Hams and Bobby Moore in particular, if you look at him closely, whenever the ball was on the way to him, he would be looking at the rest of the pitch. And I'm thinking, how do you do that? The ball's on its way to you, and you're not even looking at the ball. You're looking at what you're going to do with it when you get it. And that sums him up. And I tried really hard to emulate that. Initially, it caused a bit of fuss because you would miss control and stuff like that. But after a while of just doing it, I mastered it, and I think that made me a better player, but also extended my career. Though I had some injuries towards the end, but because, I mean, down at Torquay, for example, we tried to do that style of play, and we became quite a bit more successful. Just that almost silly thing of just have a look what you're going to do with the ball before you get it, not get the ball and then have a look. Very, very simple, but West Ham were masters at that.
Yeah. I mean, he's still the only man as well to lift the World Cup for England's men's side. So,
yeah,
what
absolute class act.
Yeah, very, very intelligent player. Very intelligent player. Your next choice for defenders, Emlyn Hughes.
Yes. I think the word that comes to mind with Emlyn, playing along, talk about chalk and cheese, Bobby Moore and Emlyn Hughes.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're complementing each other very well, I think.
I think part of the Emlyn Hughes choice is attitude, and when he steps across the proverbial white line, Emlyn Hughes becomes Emlyn Hughes, and Liverpool is absolutely the right team for him. An incredible. I played against him in the cup. I played my debut, for Charlton at Liverpool.
Yeah.
And I just amazed. Energy, enthusiasm, all those things, and can play. So yeah, what a player! First pick in the school playground, wouldn't he be?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you look at his honours as well, I mean, he had 62 England caps. He won the First Division 4 times, 1 FA Cup, 3 Charity Shields, 2 European Cups, 2 UEFA Cups, and a UEFA Super Cup. So he's not done bad for himself, is he? And I think that was just at Liverpool. I'm not sure if he won honours elsewhere, but yeah, that is well, he won everything in the game, didn't he?
Yeah. His enthusiasm was infectious. And I can remember playing up there. So I made my debut up there. But when I played for Bournemouth at Liverpool, his name, the crowd singing his name. I mean, part of Liverpool's success, in my opinion, is the crowd. Obviously, the players are top range, but the crowd, the atmosphere, he was part of that atmosphere. And I think back in the day, I wouldn't say created that atmosphere, but certainly was part of it. Fantastic player. First choice in the playground.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of atmosphere, there's not many places that can beat the atmosphere at Anfield, is there? I mean,
No.
what an atmosphere. And I've privileged to been to Anfield and witnessed that. And yeah, what an atmosphere. Your next choice, another World Cup winner, George Cohen.
Yeah, Cohen probably not very, but hugely underrated. In my schoolboy days up in London, I would watch Chelsea or Arsenal one week and Fulham the next week for home games. So I would go to Craven Cottage, and we used to catch a bus from West Norwood, where I live, up to the ground. And George Cohen, the Fulham right back, and the left back, just to throw it in, at Fulham was a guy called Jim Langley, who was quite a character, a left back, both were attacking fullbacks, both liked to get forward. And both of them you would not wish to mess with either physically. So, but George Cohen, I mean, as quick as any player on the scene in his era, and a good user of the ball, and very calm, just got on with it. Great player. Hugely underrated, in my opinion.
Yes, another player as well, also who was a one-man club.
Yes.
I think he made over 400 appearances for Fulham, and it's not seen these days, is it? A one-man club. It's a dying breed now, isn't it?
Mm. But I think back then, the financial side comes into play, and I mean, maximum wage £20 a week, or when I think I was paying and part time, but £6 a week in the season and £5 in the. Okay, but that days gone by, that's life, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it was definitely a different world then, wasn't it? Next choice, defender.
Yeah,
Eddie McCready.
Yeah, a bit of a not an unknown one by any means, but probably not as well known as the others. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I used to go at school. We used to play the matches in the morning, and then I'd go and watch either Chelsea or Arsenal in the afternoon. And Eddie McCready was a fullback at Chelsea, and his enthusiasm and talent was, in my opinion, was second to none. And he was absolutely not somebody to mess about with. I assume he was Scottish with a name like that, and that certainly came through. But also on the ball, he was just a calmness again. And this, I keep using this word calmness, but on a pitch, with 22 players and 3 people looking after the game, and 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 people screaming and shouting, it's quite difficult at times to stay calm, but at the same time be aggressive. There's a fine balance there, and I thought that he showed that. And being Scottish, he was obviously quite confrontational at times, as most Scottish defenders are or were. But no, he was. I learnt a lot watching him play. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, a player who made 23 appearances for Scotland and was also an FA Cup winner in 1970.
You would not want to mess with him. Let's put it that way.
That's a good way to sum him up. You don't want to mess with him. Yeah. To be fair, looking at him, I don't think if I was a winger, I'd want to be running at him, to be honest. So
he was quite quick as well. So it wasn't as though he was a big, cumbersome, no pace fullback. As you can see from the photograph, he's quite slight, very slim, and not particularly tall, but reasonably tall. But got on with the game, and do not mess with him.
Well, let's move on to your midfielders, and a name that both your generation and my generation will know fondly is Terry Venables.
Yeah, what can you say? Played with him when he was a schoolboy.
Yeah.
We played for London Schoolboys. Back in the day, you played for your school, your district. If you were in and around London Schoolboys, and the next stage up for that was England Schoolboys. Well, Venables played for England Schoolboys, but he also played for London Schoolboys. And the team talk from memory back playing for London Schoolboys, and we'd play Glasgow, Manchester, Birmingham, and we'd also play like Paris and 1 or 2 of the Italian capitals for London Schoolboys. And Venables was the midfielder and captain of London Schoolboys. And the games were played at professional grounds. So you play Berlin or you play Glasgow or wherever it might be. And the basic team talk before the games was, don't be nervous, don't be overwhelmed, we were only 15-year-olds, for goodness sake. And the final thing was, and when you get the ball, Dave, or to the other guys, give it to Terry. Give it to him. Oh, right. So that was it. Yeah, don't bother about the wingers, and as a fullback, you might give the odd ball to your left winger, but give it to Venables. That's how good he was. And there was people in the team who went on to be professionals at good levels, Just give it to him. Let him get on with it. And that was the ploy for London Schoolboys. Got a bit tricky when 1 or 2 of the opposition sort of marked him. But back at that time, schoolboy football, that side of it, the physical side, was probably not as much as it is nowadays. But fantastic player.
Yeah, I mean,
great
obviously,
character as well.
Sorry, say again.
Great character. He would speak to you, and that back in the day with some of these, so-called superstars at that age. But he was a really nice guy.
Yeah, I mean, for my generation, obviously, we know him as Barcelona manager, Spurs FA Cup winning manager, and obviously that summer in '96 when he led England all the way to the semi-finals of Euro '96, a tournament that England probably should have won. But that's obviously my memories of Terry. But it's great to hear a perspective of him as a player, because obviously not having the privilege to watch him. But yeah, it's nice to hear the opinion on Terry. So.
But the team talk would normally be, when you get the ball, give it to Terry.
Give it to Terry. He created everything, and basically, yeah.
Absolute class.
Yeah, sounds like a superb player. Your next choice is a guy that I remember from being manager of Swansea City about 24 years ago. John Hollins.
Yeah. Long throw specialist.
I'm assuming that's why the picture is the throw-in position.
Great in midfield. He'd be I used to call it the proverbial kind of school playground player. Where it's all happening, he would be in there, getting the ball, fighting for the ball, getting it, passing it, geeing people along, all that industrious type midfield player that there's been a few over the years, and scored a few goals as well. But a nice guy. He's always going to turn up and play. He's always going to be trying. I mean, it seems strange to say those sort of things, but 100% players are worth their weight in gold, and you know what you're going to get from him, and he was one of those.
Yeah, veteran as well of the game as well. He made, I think it was over 700 appearances across his career, and obviously, like I say, his spell at Swansea as a manager, he won the third division title in 1999-2000 season. So a player that's had a great career as a player and a decent career as a manager. I think he managed Chelsea as well. Did he manage Chelsea?
I think he did for a short while.
Yeah.
Very easy to get on with, very normal sort of guy, down to earth.
Yeah. Well, your next choice is another interesting one. He was part of the 1966 World Cup squad, but didn't get a game. Ian Callaghan.
Yeah, I had the unpleasant experience of playing against him.
Was this your debut?
Yeah, and on the right wing was this fella.
Yeah.
And on the left wing was Peter Thompson.
Yeah.
Those are both flyers, and I mean flyers. So that I've got to have it. I would say that Callaghan would be more down to earth than Peter Thompson. Peter Thompson was a marvellous player, very talented, skillful, a few tricks in his bag as a left winger. Callaghan was more down to earth, shove the ball past you, run round you and cross it, or cut inside and shoot. But Callaghan and Thompson, when Bournemouth played Liverpool in the Cup, we spent all week, Terry Gulliver and myself, the right back, we spent all week working on the basis that Liverpool, their main attacks were down the flanks, down the wings, and Callaghan was the right winger and Peter Thompson was the left winger. So we trained all week on that basis. Come the match, they switched wings. Thompson came over my side. Ian Callaghan went over the other side. So I can remember, this is in the heat of the battle. So I looked over at Terry Gulliver, the right back, and put my arms up and went, "What do we do?" And we just both shook our heads and just got on with the game. But Callaghan, a right winger, shove it past you, cross the ball. Tony Haley would head it in. He would also work back. He'd cover. Great player. He's a playground. I used to call them playground players. People you'd pick first, and not guys that would turn up one week and not really put it in, and the following week be all right. Great player, good to have in the team.
Yeah,
England international.
Yeah, and another player that won plenty of honours at Liverpool and had a career that spanned 979 games, I think.
Yeah, never injured, was he?
So so what a total of games that is to play across your career is it's incredible, especially in his position as well. It's amazing. But your next player is a player that you've just mentioned. Again, another Liverpool star, Peter Thompson.
Yes, he as good a left winger as I've ever seen. I think left wingers always seem to be a little bit different to right wingers, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right wingers, for some reason, seem to be fairly straightforward. Shove it past you, run past you, cross it. Left wingers always seem to be a bit tricky, threatening to cross the ball, all that sort of stuff. And Thompson was one of those. And he'd spin you. Just watching him play. Fortunately, I didn't have to mark him very often, only when he came over my side. And I mean, it's probably shouldn't say this, but when we played them in the cup, and Callaghan was my right winger, Terry Gulliver at the right back, and myself, we trained all week on facing Callaghan for me and Thompson. We looked to them as the two most dangerous players, and they would cross the ball and so on and so forth. And after about 10, 15 minutes, they switch wings. So I've now got Thompson, and Terry Gulliver's got Callaghan.
Mm-hmm.
And Thompson, I know, is going to threaten to cross it, pull it back, all that sort of stuff. And I'm thinking, I'm just not going to enjoy this. Callaghan I could cope with because I had a bit of pace, not a lot, but a bit of pace. And I knew pretty much he was going to go on the outside, Callaghan, and cross it. Thompson would threaten to cross it, pull it back, and he'd just tie you in knots. So just absolutely wonderful to watch, but not if you were playing against him.
Yeah, I mean, it's another player. He had, I think it was 16 England caps for England. And Liverpool, I mean, over 300 appearances for Liverpool. So, yeah.
Very underrated.
Yes, I was going to say, to get only 16 England caps, he must have had some competition in the England setup, not to, obviously there's lots of names that played for England, isn't there? So there must have been some names ahead of him to only make 16 international appearances. But sticking with the England theme, your next choice is probably one of the most recognisable players in England history, Geoff Hurst.
Yeah, a legend.
Very much.
Very, very good at setting play up, which was the West Ham way. But at the same time, lethal in front of goal. And also pretty good in the air to head balls. So the complete player, really. As a forward, who do you least want to play against? Geoff Hurst. The physical side would be there as well. And very focused and scored lots of goals.
Yeah, I mean, 299 goals in 674 career appearances. So
one every three, roughly.
Yeah.
But, good player and a good at setting up play as well. Not just a goal scorer. I mean, I'd put him in a league with Ted McDougall, although I think Geoff Hurst, I would suggest, is probably a more complete player in terms of setting play up and so on. Ted didn't really want to get involved in that, mainly because he had Phil Boyer around, who was as good as anybody at doing that. But Geoff Hurst was an all-round complete player.
Yeah, it's
and a good attitude.
Yeah, and obviously West Ham legend as well, and yeah, we'll all remember that. That World Cup hat trick, and obviously the important part he played in that '66 World Cup. But there's one man who was injured that year, and is probably the reason why Jeff managed to get the start. Who's made your list, which is probably one of the greatest goal scorers of all time. Jimmy Greaves.
Yeah. Well, what can you say?
Yeah.
Just had a. I mean, it's probably a slightly unusual thing to say, but just had a knack of scoring goals, and something that I was never ever familiar with. I hasten to add, but he had this knack that I think all great goal scorers have, of having the ball in front of the goal and a great calmness descend on them and just put the ball in the back of the net. And Jimmy Greaves was in that class. You know, he would get the ball in the box, everything would slow down, and he'd put the ball into the back of the net. I mean, how do you do that? You mean consistently? But he did it. And people would, because he was relatively small, he was not a big guy, you know, people would, back in the day then, would seriously quite be keen to kick him and give him a bit of physical side. But he just cruised along. Incredible player.
Yeah. I mean, incredible stats as well. I mean,
Oh,
707 appearances, 469 goals, which is, yeah, what a stat that is. And the other thing as well, I mean, he played for, I've just got it up here, 3 London clubs: Chelsea, Tottenham, and West Ham,
yeah.
as well as a stint at AC Milan where he played 10 games, scoring 9 times. What a player! What a player! But
What can you
obviously,
say?
yeah, I mean, obviously, I didn't get the privilege of seeing him play live. Obviously, that I've seen video footage of Jimmy Greaves, but yeah, my biggest memory of Jimmy Greaves is being with Ian St. John on a Saturday lunchtime doing Saints and Greavesy on the TV. That's that's my earliest memory of Jimmy Greaves. But yeah, one hell of a player, one hell of a player. And your subs, one that might surprise some people that he's not made your starting 11, but George Best,
Yeah.
Ian St. John, and Roger Hunt. Yeah, how come Best doesn't make your starting lineup? Because obviously he's probably football's first worldwide icon, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think as I was a defender. Defenders probably at times don't move into the world of talent and all those sorts of words. So George Best was one of those players that when he was on and when he was playing and when he was trying, and that's meant with the greatest respect, he was unstoppable. But there were periods where I felt he probably wasn't at his best and perhaps he should have done better. I think part of his problem was perhaps he had so much talent that he probably didn't have to try very hard. You know, it just came naturally. And I think that his lifestyle and that way of playing probably sums him up. I mean, he's on his day unstoppable, but you know, you got to be unstoppable on more than 1 in 3 or whatever it might be. But an incredible player, especially at a time when defenders were quite keen on kicking him.
Yes.
You know, they were very physical because you had to try to stop him. I mean, he was in just impossible to stop at times. So huge talent, hugely not wasted, but in today's world, he would still be as good as he is, and maybe his lifestyle, etc., would have been a bit better.
Yeah, and a man that obviously pulled on a Cherry shirt for 5 appearances
Yeah,
in the 80s, the 82-83 season, I think it was, if I remember rightly.
yeah.
But yeah, obviously an icon of the game. And when was it you actually played against him?
I played against him in a charity match.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah, and I was sort of designated to mark him. He played on the right wing, and I played left back. And I can't do his accent, but it was very Irish. And we were playing, and he came up to me and hi, how you know, and all this. And he'd actually had and I mean, I'm not just saying this, but he had a drink before the game, which was interesting. And the second time he got the ball, and I sort of moved over to sort of think, oh, here we go. And he said, I can't do his accent, but he said, I'm going to nutmeg you, which means I'm going to put it through your legs.
Yeah.
And I sort of, oh no, you're not. Like, you know, the competitive bit came out, and he said, yes, I am. You know, and he just dropped his shoulder, just literally dropped his shoulder, and I could feel my right leg going with his shoulder, opening my legs up.
Ah.
And he just dropped the shoulder, whipped it through my legs, wrapped around me, and said, I told you so. And, I mean, magical, just magical. And I'm trying, you know, I'm not doing it to show off to the crowd, or not show off, but to crowd appeal. I'm doing it because you're in front of me and you're not going past me. And I'm a defender and I know what I'm doing. And afterwards we had a chat, and he was a lovely guy. And he just, when he left, he just turned around and he said, because everyone had called me Stocksy back in those days, Stocksy, I told you so. He just walked away. I mean, magical. I mean,
Wow.
everything about him, yeah, was correct.
Yeah, it's an amazing memory to have, that, isn't it? And even though he did nutmeg you, but what a player to be nutmegged by, eh?
Yeah, yeah. I think in days gone by, I would have probably took a bit of revenge on him, and then get booed by the crowd, probably.
Ian St. John, obviously I remember him from Saints and Greavesy, but as a player, why, you know, why have you chosen him?
Very unassuming. I would say the opposite of George Best. Just a great talent. He was a great target man. When the ball came to him, you couldn't get it off him. All those cliches. But he was just a class player, and he always seemed to do the right thing. Never seemed to give the ball away to the opposition. Was Scottish, so he had a little bit of an unpleasant streak in there at times. Could take care of himself because he wasn't the biggest of guys, but he could take care of himself, and I think he complemented the players around him.
Mm-hmm.
But just an absolute a class act.
Yeah, and another international player who played 21 times for Scotland. And your final choice, Roger Hunt, another Liverpool legend.
Yeah, a different animal to Ian St. John. I mean, you can imagine those two up front, can't you?
Yeah.
Roger Hunt, more physical, great target man, as we used to call him in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Good on the ball. Physically, he could handle himself. You know, from memory, not a particularly talkative individual. He wasn't like a St. John or maybe a Best, just got on with the game. And one of those that if you did tackle him in a robust way, he would just look at you. And those are the ones that always frighten me a little bit. They just had a little look at you as if to say, excuse me, don't do that, that sort of player. So I didn't, and I treated him with respect, which was probably the wrong thing to do. But it's quite difficult playing against big name players. After 10 or 15, 20 minutes of a game, they become just normal players. But that first 15, 20 minutes, let's say Liverpool in St. John, Peter Thompson, Ian Callahan, get the ball and they're running at you and you're thinking, what's going to happen? But then after a bit, the competitive instincts kick in and the game gets underway and you kind of forget it and you get on with the game. But certainly the first 15, 20 minutes of time playing against these sort of guys, it's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, he's a player who earned 34 England caps, I think it was, and I've got his stats here: 568 career appearances and 309 goals. And when you talk about Jimmy Greaves, that's not a bad record in comparison, is it, with Roger Hunt? That's a good goal scoring ratio he's got there. And
different players, very different players. Difference in size, different in approach. Greaves, I felt, used to watch him a lot, and Chelsea would score a goal, and you'd think, so who was that? Who scored that? Oh, of course, it's Jimmy Greaves, isn't it? It was a bit like that. Just expected that when the ball came in the box, Jimmy Greaves would be on the end of it and would score, and without any aplomb, it was, well, that's what I do. Yeah. Okay. But he was like that. He's just good at scoring goals, which is a gift.
Yeah, massively. And what a talented player he was, and what a talented player all those selections that you've chosen in both part 1 and 2 of this special program that we've got on the channel. It's been great to have you back on, David, and to hear about all your experiences playing against these great players.
Thank you. Well, I was going to say it was a pleasure, but at the time it probably wasn't.
Well, just yeah, sorry, after you.
No, just to say, it's great to be able to relive these things, and sometimes as you get older, you kind of forget these things have happened. But then when you drill it down and talk about it, you think, wow, did I actually do that? Yes, I did. So fantastic memories, and I hope that, I was going to say people I played against enjoyed it. They probably didn't, because I physically tried to assault them. But it's just nice to relive these moments from the past, and it's a long while ago, but they're still in there, and it's great. Thanks very much.
Yeah, no, it's great. And just for our listeners and for those watching on YouTube, for those that want to learn more about David's career in the game, David's book In the Shadows is available on Amazon at the moment. And not only that, if you check out the channel, you can see our full interview with David, where we discussed all his career from his early days at Charlton all the way through to his playing days with Bournemouth and Torquay United and beyond. So, be sure to check that out. If you're on the channel, please subscribe and also give it a like. And David, it's been great to do these 2 shows with you. Like I said, it's been a privilege. Thank you very much for your time. and thank you very much for sharing your memories with us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed it immensely. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been great, and I shall stay in touch, and I shall hopefully see you soon.
Take care.
Thank you. See you soon.
Bye.
The Talksport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the Talksport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search Talksport Fan Network.